What's up everybody? Back again with some quarantine content with a long-awaited video, the Fuji X100V versus the Ricoh GR III. Alright, in this video we're going to go over the Fuji X100V versus the Ricoh GR III. I'm just going to go over some of the features about it, some of the specs, but if you want a deeper look into the cameras, I have full reviews out for each camera. You can check it out on my channel. But today I just kind of want to highlight some of the features of the X100V versus the Ricoh GR III, and by the end of it maybe help you, if you're deciding between the two cameras, decide which one's right for you, because they're both kind of similar cameras. They're both premium compact fixed lens cameras, but I think they're two very different beasts, and we're going to go into that today. So the first thing I want to talk about is image quality. Let's talk about the image quality of the Ricoh GR III. The Ricoh GR III is a 24 megapixel sensor. It's 3-axis stabilized, so it's very good in that sense. The lens is a 28mm f2.8, so you're getting a wider field of view, and all the images I've gotten from it I really love. The JPEGs, the RAWs, they're really nice. For my own personal use, I only really ever shoot JPEG on this. 24 megapixels I find is just enough, especially if you need to do a bit of cropping in post. It's really all you need. The Fuji X100V has a 26 megapixel sensor, so it's a little bit more, 2 megapixels more than the Ricoh GR III. And of course, you hear it all the time, Fuji JPEGs, the color science is amazing in the Fuji. Honestly, again, for my use of these cameras, I shoot JPEG pretty much exclusively, and I find the JPEGs coming out of the Fuji is beautiful. Film simulation is awesome. I just pop it into my phone, do a little light editing, and then it's ready to share. So image quality wise, between the two cameras, it's basically a tie. Sometimes I find the image stabilizer helps a bit more on the Ricoh, so I need to slow that shutter speed down, or if I got some shaky hands, this stabilization really helps. But for me, I'm gonna say image quality between these two, it's a tie. They're both super high quality. You're gonna love them. All right, next let's talk about the lenses. First, the Ricoh has a 28mm f2.8 equivalent. It has an APS-C crop sensor on this camera. Both cameras are APS-C. So it's 28mm equivalent to a full frame camera. So yeah, the 28mm focal length is very good for street photography, landscape, environmental portraits, anything wider that you want to fit more into the frame. I feel like the Ricoh is awesome for that. The Fuji, on the other hand, has a 35mm equivalent f2 lens, and personally, I prefer the 35mm focal length. It's kind of like the standard lens most people are used to. It's kind of how you see. And the 35mm kind of puts me a bit closer to subjects that work better for me. Since I like doing portraits, the 35mm paired with the f2 aperture, I can get more separation from my subjects, and I like that bokeh in the background of the 35mm f2. Between these two, it's really personal preference, whether you like a wider lens versus a 35mm lens. But because it's a 35mm and it's f2, since it's faster, I'm gonna pick the Fuji lens over the Ricoh. All right, so next we're gonna talk about the low light between these two cameras. On the Ricoh, again, f2.8 aperture versus an f2 on the Fuji's. Just on that alone, the Fuji does let more light in. However, the Ricoh does have an image stabilized lens, so you can lower your shutter speed while keeping that ISO a bit lower in order to get your shot. So between the two, it's quite similar. However, software-wise, it speaks differently. Here in this image, you can check out the high ISO performance between these two cameras. As you can tell, the Fuji is actually delivering a much cleaner shot at the same ISO. And I think that's to do with A, the lens, and B, the sensor, or the image processing on the Fuji is just a bit better. The high ISO is a lot noisier on the Ricoh. You can see it's a bit muddier and is not as attractive. And also the 2 megapixels of the Fuji does help in the image quality. So the winner, I'm gonna have to give it to the Fuji X100V. The f2 aperture along with the image processing in this camera, it's way better. I think it's a cleaner image. High ISO performance, I'm gonna give it to the Fuji. All right, next we're gonna talk about the autofocus between these two cameras. Now, if you want a deeper dive, I've done specific autofocus tests with both cameras, and you can check out the videos in my channel. But between these two cameras, autofocus is pretty similar. I would say they're both very quick and snappy. You wouldn't be using this to shoot sports photography or like intense wildlife. So for the use cases of street photography, landscape, and portrait, the autofocus systems on both these cameras is perfectly fine. I'm gonna say it's a tie on that. However, the Fuji does offer a bit more features in its autofocus. Mainly, it has eye detect along with face detect, and you can even choose if you want the right eye or the left eye in focus. So that's really nice. I really enjoy that. And I find the tracking on the Fuji's is really good for the eye and the face detect. So with those extra features, I'll give it to the Fuji. The Ricoh does feature a macro mode, so if you're looking to get really close to subjects and get that focus, the Ricoh can get a lot closer for macro photography. You can take a look at this image I shot. You can see kind of what the closest the Fuji can focus to versus what the closest the Ricoh can focus to, and you can decide if you think that macro mode's right for you. All right, moving on. We're talking about video performance between these two cameras, and guys, it's a real simple answer. The Fuji X100V is way better for video. Don't even consider using the Ricoh for video. Honestly, your phone would probably do better. There is a video function on here, but it doesn't offer much control, and it's just not very good. However, Fuji did take the time and consideration to actually put some really nice video features into the X100V. You can shoot 4K 30, 4K 24, limited to like 8 minutes, but it gets the job done if you just want those quick clips. It also does a beautiful 1080, 60 frames a second. I really enjoy that. Paired with the Eterna film stock, and I actually use this for video quite a bit. I really like just taking some quick video shots when I'm out shooting. So it's really nice to have that feature in the X100V, and it's one of the main reasons why I bought this camera. I wanted a camera that can also do some video, and that was when I had the Ricoh. I always wish it could take better video, but it honestly can't. So the Fuji X100V is perfect for video if you think you're going to take any video. The only thing I wish I had was some stabilization, because it does get a little bit shaky because everything's handheld, but video performance wise, the Fuji X100V delivers. All right, next I just want to quickly talk about the menu systems. Which menu system is better, or which has a better user interface? Honestly, it's a tie. They both have this kind of like a sidebar going into a scroll down menu system. Both very linear, very easy to understand. Both the systems are way better than the Sony's, which is what I use for work, and I hate the Sony menus. I don't know why they can't figure out how to make a good menu system, but Fuji and Ricoh, the menus are good. So next, let's talk about the smartphone apps for these cameras. I think the smartphone apps is like a very important part of a camera's features nowadays, especially for this day and age where we want to get the image off the camera quick to our phone so we can share with people and post on Instagram or whatever. So having a solid app that is quick and provides a reliable connection is very important to me. Between the two, I find the Ricoh's app is just a bit better than the Fuji's, mainly because it transfers full res JPEGs very quickly, and once you get that initial connection, it doesn't really drop the connection at all, so it's very reliable in getting the images off the camera to my phone. Fuji, on the other hand, their app has gotten better since I've used it with the X70 way back, but I find the Fuji app to be a bit more confusing. It's a lot slower. I find you have two options, whether to do a 2 megapixel transfer or you can do the full res transfer. And when you do full res, it just takes forever. It's so slow. And then the 2 megapixels are quick, but then sometimes when I'm editing, I just want more resolution to crop. So it kind of sucks in that sense. And I hope Fuji does update the app more, because I feel like the potential's there. If they just put a bit more resources into this app, it can be a really good app. But yeah, right now, as it stands, the Ricoh's app is better and more reliable. Now I want to jump into the design and the bodies of these cameras. In general, let's talk about how they feel in the hand and how they handle. If we're talking about body sizes, the Ricoh definitely wins. It's a smaller, compact body, and it's actually pocketable, which is the main draw of this camera. I think if you're looking for a camera that you can actually take with you everywhere, the Ricoh GR III definitely wins on that one. Barely bigger than a phone. It's definitely thicker, but it's such a compact camera, and it's really just a camera that you can actually take with you anywhere, and it's nice. I really actually do like the body size of this camera. And the main reason why I bought this camera is because it was so small. So the Fuji X100V is also a pretty compact camera. Definitely not as small as the Ricoh GR III, and it would require you to wear it with a strap, I would say. You can't put this into your pocket, obviously. It is very compact. You're not gonna have any troubles carrying this around with you all day compared to like a DSLR. Features that you're getting out of this camera in this size, it's definitely small for what it is. So for body sizes, I'm gonna give the win to the Ricoh. Obviously, it's such a compact camera. It's so small, you can bring it with you everywhere. And I took it with me to New York and I brought it out everywhere. And it was awesome to have such great image quality with me all the time. And yeah, that's the main draw for this Ricoh. You're getting great image quality in a compact package. If you're happy with just not having a viewfinder and shooting kind of just with the screen in the back, it's the way to go. Now, if we're talking about the build quality between these two cameras, the Fuji X100V is definitely the winner of that category. The build quality on the Fuji X100V is just so well done. It is a piece of art, really. It's very Leica-esque, very Apple-esque. The clean lines, the minimal aluminum trim and everything. It feels solid in the hands, and the body is weather sealed. There are like rubber gaskets around all the ports and everything. The only thing that isn't weather sealed is the lens. So you actually have to buy a UV filter in order to get that 100% weather resistance. But it is a good peace of mind knowing that if you're caught outside in the rain, it just has a bit more protection from the rain than the Ricoh does. And yeah, I would say the build quality, the ruggedness of the X100V. Now the build quality on the Ricoh isn't bad at all. It's actually very, very good. It's very light. It has a magnesium alloy body with some rubber and plastic, and it's not weather resistant. So, you know, don't let it get wet. But I haven't had any problems with it. Since it's so small, I just like tuck it away in my pocket if it starts raining and everything. It's not a big deal. But if it does still feel very solid in the hand, it just doesn't compare to the Fuji in terms of build quality and ruggedness. All right, let's talk about the handling and the usability of these cameras. So the handling, I actually really love the handling on the Ricoh. Using it a few times, you just get it. It's very intuitive, and I really like how Ricoh designed it to be used with just one hand. Everything you need to access is just available with one hand. It's made for one-hand use, so it's very quick to just pull it out of the pocket, hit that power button, and start shooting right away. And all the menus are accessible on one side of the camera, which is really good. Also, there's a touch screen on the back, so you can touch around with your thumb, or you can use your other hand and do that. But having everything on one side accessible with one hand is huge. Now let's talk about the Fuji. The Fuji's handles more like a traditional camera. It has all the dials and everything, and it has the aperture dial. If you're shooting this camera for the manual purpose of shooting this camera, you will need two hands, and you're going to use all the dials. And since the build quality and the dials are so good, it's actually very nice to do that. But it's a little slower to get the image. To be honest, it took me a while to get used to handling this camera after coming from the Ricoh. I had to take it out a few times and get used to setting it up the way I want to. There's a lot of customization in this camera, and if you want to get the most out of it, you really do have to customize it. I just prioritize speed, so I use the front custom dial and the back custom dial to set my shutter speed and my ISO. I don't use the manual dials along the top because I find it's too slow. So I have it set up basically like how I would use my work camera, my Sony A7. I'm fine with that. I think this camera is more about photography, and you're slowing things down. I really like using the EVF, the OVF on here is very nice. So I'm always kind of just using this with two hands anyways. I'm always like this, changing my aperture with the ring, looking for the EVF, the OVF, and also another big bonus point for the handling is the tilt screen. I actually love using the tilt screen shooting from the hip for some street photography to be a bit more stealthy, or having it set to shoot high up at an angle like that. Too bad it doesn't go more, but it's better than nothing. And it just sits flush against the body, so it's a beautiful design. So handling wise, it's very close between the two, but I'm gonna give the win to the Ricoh. The speed of this camera, I think, is a huge draw. If you're a street photographer, you're really gonna appreciate this. Now, if they could put a tilt screen on this, it would be amazing. That's like the dream Ricoh right there. All right, now we're gonna talk about the aesthetics of these two cameras. Honestly, this really is personal opinion, but more oftentimes than none, you're gonna get a lot of compliments for the Fuji X100V. It's just an eye-catching camera. The retro quality of this camera is a showstopper. If you are walking along the street with this camera or you're sitting in a cafe, a lot of times people are gonna stop or they're gonna come by and ask you, hey, what camera is that? Or they always think it's a film camera, it's so retro and cool. Whereas the Ricoh is definitely a stealth camera. It's literally a little black box that just takes photos. And for some people, maybe that's what they want. It's black and inconspicuous, it's tiny, you know, like it's just so stealthy. It's a little black box that shoots. So the winner of this category, I'm gonna give it to the Fuji. I honestly just love the way this camera looks. Just having it sit on my shelf and I just like looking at it. It's like a piece of art. It does really just stoke something in me. It makes me want to go shoot. It makes me want to pick up this camera, and it brings passion to my photography. And yeah, I kind of wish I went for the black model because the silver is very eye-catching. So when I'm out on the street, I honestly don't like being stopped and at people eyeing my camera. I'd rather have a black stealthy camera. But to enjoy personally at home when it's sitting on a shelf, this camera is definitely the winner. So X100V, the aesthetics and the design of this camera, top notch. All right, now the final category is the value. So Fuji X100V, $1,800 Canadian. Ricoh GR III, about $1,200 Canadian. Is the Fuji worth the extra $600? They're both premium price cameras. They're both expensive. For like $1,200 or $1,800, you can buy a camera that has an interchangeable lens system. So these are not cheap cameras. Are you getting more value for the Fuji than you are the Ricoh? I'm gonna have to say yes. You're gonna get more value with the Fuji X100V. In everything I've talked about, the design, the image quality, the lens, the dials and everything, the ruggedness of this camera, it all comes down to that. It's a full-bodied camera. When you're buying this camera, it feels like you're getting a camera. You have the EVF, the OVF, you have the aperture ring. Everything feels very, very premium, and the video function is very good. So the video function is there. The f2 35mm lens is there, the tilt screen's there, the OVF, EVF is there. All these in combination does make the Fuji a better value camera, I believe. But if none of those things matter to you, heck, if you're just looking for a camera that's gonna accompany you everywhere and replace your cell phone, then I would get the Ricoh. You're gonna save $600 and the image quality you're getting out of this camera is amazing. That's great value too. But for me, I wanted a camera that's a bit more than just what the Ricoh had to offer. I wanted a camera that can do video. I like using the EVF, OVF, and the Fuji X100V just hit all those check marks. So for me, the value was worth it. I think you're gonna get more value from a camera with the Fuji X100V. All right guys, we made it to the end of the video. Oh wow, it's a long video. But now just some closing thoughts that I have and which I would recommend for who. If you're someone who's really passionate about photography, maybe you're a photon photographer, you shoot all day with a DSLR or a full frame mirrorless camera, and you're looking for something that kind of sparks a new kind of passion in you, then I'm gonna say the Fuji X100V should be that camera. If you buy this camera, you should be somebody who's willing to obviously pay that much money for a camera, but you're also looking for something that's more than just a DSLR or like a mirrorless camera with all those functions. You're looking for a camera that's gonna challenge you with the fixed lens. You're looking for a camera that's gonna feel very manual. It's gonna feel like it has a soul. This camera is a camera that has a soul, and you're gonna love the image quality coming out of this camera, and you're gonna have fun shooting the camera. That's the main thing. So if you're that kind of person, I would say the X100V is right for you, and you don't mind that it is a bit bigger. You probably do have to think about when you're taking this camera out still, but when you take this camera out, it's fun. That's all there is to it. It's a fun camera, and the image quality is awesome. If you're someone who does a lot of street photography, you like to be stealthy, you like landscape, and you don't really care about all that, the passion, I need a camera that speaks to me, that speaks to my heart, whatever. If that's all like BS to you, the Ricoh GR3 is your camera. The Ricoh GR3 is such a capable camera, street photography, landscapes. This camera is the camera. And honestly, I've taken some of my favorite images with this camera. That's why I still have this camera. I think it's a camera that really does allow you to take anywhere. Its compact size is a winning factor. So if you're looking for something that you can carry with you every day, take some amazing street photography, some environmental portraits, some landscapes, X100V is your camera. It's also a great camera to accompany you with if you're going out with like a DSLR or a full frame mirrorless camera. All right, so there you have it. That's my comparison of these two cameras. I love both these cameras. That's the reason why I'm keeping both these cameras. Maybe in the future, maybe I would sell one if I need to get another camera. But off the bat, I've decided to keep both. I was actually gonna return the X100V. Initially, that was my original plan. But after using it, I really fell in love with this camera. The beauty, the design, and just the enjoyment of shooting it won me over. Love the EVF, OVF. For me, that's huge. I think for photographers, they really do appreciate that. I just couldn't get over just using this screen on the back of this Ricoh. It just felt like just like a little point and shoot, which it is, you know? This is a little point and shoot to carry with you everywhere, and it does amazing image quality. So between these two, either camera you're gonna be happy with the image quality. Now it's just about fitting it into your lifestyle. So good luck. Let me know in the comments which one you choose, and I'll see you in the next one.